Hi, friends. So I want to start out this channel by talking a bit about my gurus, life with my current guru, and a history of teachers that I've studied with on this path. I like to call myself a spiritual enthusiast. I have been very much into God and spirituality since I can remember. It all started when I was in Catholic school and really loved going to church, loved communing with Jesus and Mary and the saints and just kind of feeling their presence there. And I remember, I don't know, second grade or so, the nun came in to tell us, what it's like to be a nun. And she's like, well, essentially you marry God. And I was like, sign me up. I want to marry God. And of course, what are you like, 7, 6? And ever since then, I've just been in pursuit of connecting deeply with God. In fact, I remember one time I was, again, really small, 6, 7, something like that. And I was sitting in my grandmother's bathroom and I just shut the door, sat on the toilet, not going to the bathroom, just sitting there. And I wanted to understand who I was inside of this world. So I repeated what now I understand to be a mantra. I repeated the sound me, like me. I want to understand me. I want to understand who I was. So I just repeated me, 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 me. And I want to go back into like the I didn't know at the time, but like the incarnation. Like, where did I come from? Why was I here? And I repeated me, me, me until I kind of lost the mind and went into like a vortex. And then of course I got scared and came back out. So I essentially meditated and went into a deep place to explore who I was at the soul level. And ever since then, it's just been pursuit. And so I really loved Jesus. I still do Jesus and the saints and Christianity, Holy Spirit. I remember walking around the playground as a little girl, not wanting to really bother with other children. Again, I was doing Catholic school and I would just talk to God. I would have conversations with God. It was me and God. That's what I did. Other kids were playing kickball and whatever. And I just wandered around by myself and spoke to God. And in fact, I remember doing like playtime in the classroom. I would play hangman with God. And since my name is Gina, starts with a G, and God starts with a G, I would put G and G. And to this day, I don't really remember how I deciphered which, what the answer, God's answer was going to be, unless he was probably talking to me. So I would play hangman with myself and God. Like this was how I was growing up. So there was never a time that I couldn't remember of just like, God is my friend. God is my companion. God is my guide. And the continual desire to always connect with him. And then later on found out her too. Catholicism, there wasn't anything having to do with women in terms of power, right? We knew that there was Mary, Mother Mary. But even when I was in Catholic school, girls couldn't be altar boys, right? There weren't altar kids. There were boys, and girls really couldn't participate. We couldn't go up onto the altar. We couldn't, touch the stuff. We couldn't really get involved, and that rubbed me the wrong way. The other thing was that we would go into confessions and I would tell the priest. And I thought, well, the priest is just over there talking to God, but I talk to God. So why don't I just tell God what I did wrong, right? So there were some disconnects that I recognized early on that, maybe meant that this wasn't the right long-term path for me. And so as I went through high school and started to explore more, and I was like, there's just more to it. I know there's more to it. And then when I got into college, I picked up this, I don't know where I found it, but it was this little, I still have it to this day, this little paperback thing. And I said, learn to meditate. And, or it says, I don't know, learn to meditate or meditation. And it was this little pamphlet. And I picked it up and I carried it around with me for years. And I flipped through it, but like, who wants to learn how to meditate from a pamphlet, right? So I'm carrying this thing. And then one day in college, I see this poster and it says, learn to meditate, free class. And I was like, finally, they've come for me. And I go to this class And I meet this amazing woman, two amazing women who put me on the path to meditation, mindfulness, um, spiritual enlightenment. Until then, I didn't know that I too could become enlightened. I could get to a place of evolution where there's oneness with the divine. That I didn't understand or even have a concept of previously in my Christian journeys. So I start attending class, and the first class, she said, okay, now focus on your chakra. And I'm like, what's a chakra? And she's like, it's here at your belly button, and it's at your heart, and it's at your third eye. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea what any of those things are. We listened to a 5-minute audio of music, which was created by their teacher. And I started feeling things in what I just found out to be as chakras. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is that? And then in my third eye, I could see something swirling, and I was still having thoughts, but I was also having experiences. And so after we're done meditating, she's like, there's a few other people, how'd it go? And I was like, well, I had this thing. And she's like, wow, okay, so you had your first, experience with your chakras on your first time meditating. I'm like, yeah. So it was fun. I went back every week. And then they introduced us, that we had an opportunity to meet their teacher, who was Rama, Dr. Frederick Lens. And he was my first spiritual teacher. And oh my gosh, I couldn't even begin to thank him if I tried. I get emotional just thinking about it. He changed my life in such a profound way. There's no way to repay that. Like, there must be some past life debt, right? And also just, giving back. But so I met him for the first time. I was 19 years old. It was a week before my birthday. I think it was December 7th or something. 2000, I don't even know what year it was, 1992 maybe. I was 19, and yeah, 1992. And I sat, it was like a stadium seating type of thing, and I think SUNY Purchase, New York. And I'm sitting there, and I didn't know what he looked like. I kind of expected some like Indian guy or some, Eastern looking fellow, and this 6'2" or whatever, tall blonde man in an Armani suit walks out on the stage and sits on this little kind of Japanese looking seat, this beautiful screen behind him. And I was like, wow, okay, this is what we're doing, And he began to speak about perspective, what it's like to have perspective, how to manage your mind and your thoughts, how you can control your thoughts, and that you're the master of that. And no one had ever said that to me before. And I was like, oh my gosh, worlds were opening up in my mind, in my body, like, and visually the room started like having different types of textures to it. And I was like, wow, this is intense. And I left that room a totally different person. And from that day onward, for I don't know how many days, I was fully energized. I would get up, go for a walk or a run. I decided to change my life. I changed my dorm room around. I broke up with my boyfriend of 4 years. Like, everything shifted. I just knew deep in my soul that everything was changing. And so 7 days later, when my birthday rolled around, when I turned 20, it was like my world exploded. I never felt so much energy, so energized, so understanding, or kind of some insight that my life was going to unfold in a miraculous way that I had no idea how it was going to happen. I just knew it was going to be amazing. I knew it was going to be amazing. And God was telling me that. The divine was telling me that. My soul was telling me that. So at that 20th birthday, everything changed. And I knew it. I just knew it in my soul. Everything changed. And I said to my roommate, I don't know what's going to happen. I just know it's going to be amazing, like my life. And 30 years later, that's exactly what's been happening. My life has been amazing, and I couldn't have predicted it for a second. So meet Rama, life changes, study with Rama until I think it was 7 years until he left the body. So while he was guiding us in person, I didn't have many personal interactions with him, I was pretty shy and still a recluse in terms of interacting with others. I did have a couple times I was able to ask him like some questions as he moseyed around the room during breaks in our seminars. We would typically get to see him every month. Got to see him on some like island vacations a few times. Extreme empowerments, and just the gifts that he downloaded upon his students were so generous and so amazing. And he taught us not just about spirituality, but how to make a living, like how to be a productive human, how to sustain ourselves financially in a world that needed that. Because typically spiritual people will default to, oh, I don't need that stuff. Money is evil. You know, you just need God, etc. And Rama was like, no, you need money to pay your bill so you can meditate. And if you're going to do that, then you should program, because programming is like focusing on a mandala, all the intricacies. That's what you used to do in past lives. You would focus on mandalas. So programming, computer programming is like meditation. So we all went to programming school, learned how to do that. I didn't know that would ever happen to me. I for sure was never interested in programming. I did become a programmer. I was not very good at it, although I did it, and I ended up being better at becoming project managing. And that was kind of the next phase when we were studying with Rama, that we went through the programming, and then he went into project management. So I ended up becoming a project manager in that journey. So I met Rama, went to computer school, began kind of embarking on my 200% life, 100% spiritual, 100% material, which is later I would find out what Dr. Pillai teaches, who's my current teacher. Studied with Rama until I was, gosh, whatever that is, 7 years later, 26 or 25. He left the body, and then just kind of started exploring other options. I studied with a Tibetan Buddhist for a short period of time. It just wasn't for me, it's for many other people. And then one day, one of the Rama students said, you have to come see this guy. He's the real deal. And I was like, because you know who the real deal is, because the real deal was Rama. I trust you. So I show up to this event in New York City, Upper Park Avenue, beautiful Japanese style hotel. And I go in and I sit pretty close. I think I'm second back in the room, because if you get close to the enlightened beings, you really get blasted, right? So I sat pretty close up. And you know, my brain is skewed because my first teacher is American. So I didn't really know what to expect. And no one says this is the ethnicity of a teacher, right? Like, so when this very tiny Indian man with a long white beard and long hair and an Indian outfit walked out, again, I was surprised. And he was kind of the opposite of Rama, who like is very tall, blonde, suited man, thin suited man. So he comes out, and from behind, when he walked out from behind the room, the door, to when he sat down on the small stage in the front of the room, I fell in love. I just went, oh, he's small. Oh, he's Indian. Oh, like, and then, oh, like there was just a remembrance, his past life remembrance. And I just knew who he was, and I knew who I was to him. Not logically, not mentally. I couldn't tell you what that meant. I just knew at a soul level that it was there. So I immediately fell in love with his being. And then he went on to do these meditations, mantras, which was fairly new to me, putting them into different parts of the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, like kind of with light beams, just like blowing everything up. And I was like, oh my gosh, just like whole assemblage point changed during that session. And at the break, he comes out and he says, well, this next session is supposed to be for my students only, but I was told by the divine to invite all of you. And so tomorrow I'll be hosting a 12-hour vigil. It's called Mahashivaratri. It happens once per year. And if you'd like to, you can sign up. And I was like, sign me up. I signed up, and I never looked back. And the next day it was from 10 a.m. to like 4 in the morning or some crazy thing, or 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. Whatever it was, I did it. I went there. We poured milk over this crystal, which was a Shiva lingam, which I know about now, but I totally green, knew nothing. I was like, yeah, I'm game. Just tell me what to do, where to go. And that was it. Like that was started my journey. And from there, I just wanted to give. I wanted to give to him. And I knew I didn't have anything he needed, but maybe his students did. Maybe there's something I can do to help out. I had just volunteered to help out at all the events. I volunteered to help out at his ashram. I cleaned. I, supported the community, did whatever it took, just because I wanted to be involved. And people often ask me, how did you get to work for Dr. Pillai? And I was like, I just started wanting to offer my services in any way I could. Roll back. The person who walked out of the room was Dr. Bhaskaran Pillai. He's my current teacher. He's known as many different names. Guruji, Wayne Dyer wrote the book, wrote the Manifest Your Destiny about him, the meditation, his name and the dedication in Wayne Dyer's Manifest Your Destiny is Guruji. He was Maharishi Brazi. He was Dattatreya Shiva Baba. He was Shiva Baba. He was Sri Shiva. So there has been many names, and now he's known as his legal name, Dr. Pillai. And so that brings me to my current day of studying with Dr. Pillai.